So when you start your own company, usually you're all by yourself. And so normally that means you have to do everything from accounting to sales to actually performing whatever service you're offering or producing whatever product you're offering. And so this usually is extremely exhausting, but you want to do it, you're motivated, you do it, right? And so if you're successful, right? This is only in the case that you're successful. Most of the time you're actually not successful. You have to pivot, you have to restart. But if you're successful, what will usually happen is you hire somebody to support you in one of these areas, right? You might get a working student for marketing, or you might get a full-time assistant, or you might get an additional engineer or something like that. And so as you keep on being successful, you hire more and more of these people. But what usually happens is that there's somewhat of a glass ceiling. For me, in my experience, it's around 15 to 20 employees, where as you grow, you reach a certain level where, because you're still usually doing everything that really matters, right? You're still doing all of the critical sales, you're uploading the important documents just to make sure that nothing is breaking down. Usually at some point of time, you are being overwhelmed, because at this point, you're not truly delegating. You're delegating some tasks, but you're not building a system to give everything to the employees. You're still the bottleneck in the whole system. And this is actually why a lot of companies, you see them, they grow and then they fall back to a lower level, right? And then they grow again and then everything crashes down again. And if you have noticed this in your environment, maybe it was your own company, this is usually due to the fact that you build up organizational debt when you build your company. So everybody's familiar with financial debt, right? So if you start a company, you might take on a loan, and this is something that needs to be repaid in order for you to be free again, right? You can maybe just keep it on for a while, but usually financial debts have to be repaid. Some of you might even be familiar with technical debt. This is similar to financial debt, and it's just when you're building technical solutions, let's say software, sometimes you have to cut corners because there's a due date, or you might build a simpler solution for now because that is all that is required. But as you grow, actually you have to go much deeper and clean everything up that you built back then to make it more scalable, more reliable, more secure, and so on. And organizational debt is very similar to that, and that all these processes that you have in your head, because you're the founder, you're the one that built this whole thing, they need to be made explicit. They need to be put into a software. They need to be in flowcharts. They need to be taught, delegated. Maybe videos need to be shot of you performing tasks so that the employees can actually do that. And guess what? Paying debts down takes a lot of effort, be it financial, be it technical, be it organizational. And this is where a lot of founders fail. They want to delegate, right? I'm not talking about the people who want to control and hold on to everything. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about people actually wanting to delegate, but underestimating how much effort it actually takes to get rid of all this stuff. And I can tell for my consulting company, where it's the last time that I've done it, it actually took almost 6 months of sustained effort to get rid of all this organizational debt. But I can also tell you, once it's gone, it's so freeing, because you're not the only person that can do critical stuff. You've delegated everything, you set up a process management system, and now everything is well documented. It can flow and you can go to the next step, meaning you're free now to grow, and maybe you can go to a much higher level before you will encounter this problem again, right? You cannot just go from a one-person startup to the next Huawei or the next IBM without going through these problems again and again. And this is why I think it's really important to have this concept of organizational debt in your mind, because as you grow, which is good, you're very successful, congratulations, but as you grow, you accumulate that organizational debt. And it's very smart strategically to build in these pauses to then actually pay that debt down, so you can keep growing and you don't do this up and down where you're like hitting this glass ceiling. You don't actually know what's going on. Everything crashes down again. You're ambitious, you want to try again, and it crashes down again, and you want to get out of this. So keep your organizational debt in mind.